Showtime! The Capital G show starts right now.
What's up YouTube, Capital G here. Today we're putting Konami's R&D on the hot seat. I'm pretty sure that they exist, right? Although sometimes you wouldn't know it by some of the ridiculous cards they print out, and that's the focus of today's video. Spotlighting not necessarily overpowered cards, but ones that undoubtedly had no business ever seeing the light of day because the card design was just fundamentally flawed, glaringly so. Now, as I like to have diversity on this channel and some semblance of continuity, this video will serve as a spiritual successor to the top 10 broken cards of all time, and no cards on that list will be eligible for this one, obviously. Without further ado, this is the top 10 worst designed Yu-Gi-Oh cards of all time, the Yu-Gi-Oh hierarchy. Number 10, Tellarknight Ptolemaeus. We start off our list with a card that isn't exactly daunting or overflowing with power, but more or less makes an entire mockery of the rank system that Xyz monsters abide by. What we have here is a rank 4 monster which is part of a level 4 archetype, but one that allows duelists to summon ranks 5 through 7 without a second thought. That just shouldn't happen. Number 9, Morphing Jar number 2, one of the worst designed flip effects Konami has ever created. Morphing Jar number 2 took the spirit of a card like Cyber Jar, which was already pretty stupid and convoluted, and vomited all over it. In the end, you got an extremely frustrating card that almost always felt like a colossal waste of time, as there is almost no purposeful way to play the card outside of mill decks. Number 8, Last Turn, another one of many cards better suited for the anime. Last Turn in theory is supposed to be an epic clash of each deck's most powerful monsters in a winner-take-all 1v1 me final destination, no items, Super Smash style throwdown. But in actuality, what it led to is one of the most impractical and flimsy LTKs ever. This is largely thanks to the fact that it is incredibly easy for Last Turn's activation to result in a draw, and as the card pool expanded, the probability only increased. Number 7, MAKYURA the Destructor. Traps are generally designed to be extremely powerful defensive cards that serve as your last line of defense for extreme situations that your monsters can't handle. And some of the game's most powerful traps, like Ring of Destruction and Solemn Judgment, can even be played offensively at the same time. This is why traps have to be set first before activation, to balance their great protective power by making them slower than monster and spell cards. At the same time, they're very vulnerable to destruction in exchange for converting your field into a sanctuary. MAKYURA flips all of this on its head, allowing a player the ability to outright bypass having to wait a turn to use their traps, and in the process dodging all potential destruction simultaneously. Number 6, Super Polymerization. Super Poly is the only card on this list, not so much judged by what the card actually does, but more so what it doesn't allow your opponent to do. See, Super Poly falls into the very rare class of what I like to call Spell Speed 4, which I have aptly named because no cards and effects can be used in response, i.e. nothing can be chained to a Spell Speed 4, and why Super Poly isn't the only card in the game with this effect, it sure as hell is the best. Not only being a quick play, but one that allows you to special summon a monster potentially in the battle phase, and can do so potentially only using your opponent's monsters as materials. That is extremely powerful. Number 5, APOOLIPHORT Towers. Here's the blueprint on how to make a boss monster so disgustingly powerful you have to ban the card less than a year after you've released it. Step 1, make it completely immune to all spells, traps, and 90% of monster effects. Step 2, make it weaken anything that actually has some chance of killing it. Step 3, finally, just for kicks, have it take cards out of your opponent's hand just in case, because, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Towers was essentially 5 times stronger than the Egyptian god cards, and I can't stress this enough, they were supposed to be god cards. Number 4, the Big Dragon Rulers, all of them. It was blatantly obvious before they were released. If nothing else, the cards would give some of the game's best and most established archetypes the ability to OTK or just needlessly add huge chunks of damage on the board for basically no cost. But much more relevant than that, when used together, the Dragon Rulers would create one of the strongest decks of all time. The fact of the matter is, not only did one dragon fuel the summon of another, but they would also trigger each other's effects when doing so, creating one of the most ridiculously strong toolboxes in the game, which is pretty silly considering that dragons might already be the most supported type in Yu-Gi-Oh! Number 3, Fiber Jar. In my personal opinion, along with Chaos Emperor Dragon, this has to be the worst monster effect ever put on a card. In the not so early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! Research and development, for whatever reason, actually thought that it would be a good idea to give the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! A reset button in the form of a flip monster. Why, you ask? How this was going to benefit the game? What practical purposes would it actually serve, you might be wondering? To this day, none of those questions have been answered. Number 2, Ultimate Offering. Much like MAKYURA the Destructor, this is another card that not only breaks game mechanics, but habitually lets you break the law of 1 normal summon per turn. Just about every deck in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Needs to normal summon or set monsters to play, and this card pretty much lets you circumvent that. Normal summons are very important because you only get 1 shot at them, and Ultimate Offering allows you a near unlimited amount of normal summons, as long as you have life points and monsters, that is. This card also lets you summon during your opponent's turn and during their battle phase at that. All that combined with the fact that it causes some seriously easy OTKs as well. Honorable mentions include Chicken Game, Soul Charge, Royal Magical Library, and Wavering Eyes. Finally, to our number 1, Self-Destruct button. This is easily one of the worst cards ever created, and I'm pretty sure the people who create cards would probably agree with me on that. See, it's not just the players, but even Konami themselves do not like ties, which is why they have banned cards like Ring of Destruction and Last Turn in the past, because they often cause them. And even in official sanctioned Konami events, they've gone as far as to make it illegal to intentionally attempt to draw with your opponents. Why they would ever make a card whose sole purpose is to end the game in a draw, I personally think that that is the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh! Mystery of all time. I mean, let's be real. This card appeases no one, and it is even despised by its creators, so it had to make the top of this list. So let me know what you guys think. Were there any other cards that were terribly designed that I missed out on? Leave that in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching as always. Subscribing makes life happy.